Hello, hello, and welcome again to the series of Pop the Kettle On and the Spiritual Co-op, and actually getting to know you on the Spiritual Co-op. So today we have Kerrie McGilvray. Kerrie has a myriad of wonderful gifts that that she has, and she brings and she offers to the group. One of them is her beautiful mediumship, her Wild Women retreats, as well as her beautiful decks of oracle cards that she brings into our marketplace. So thank you, Kerrie, for coming and joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
How have you been?
Good. It's been great. It's school holidays, so that's always fun. But yeah, loving the marketplace. I think it's a great thing that you guys have put together. The energy is brilliant in there. There's a lot of engagement. I'm loving it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, geez, how long do we have?
We've got about half an hour, so just...
So the short version, right?
The short version, yeah.
So I'm a psychic medium, so I do readings. I also am an intuitive development teacher. So I teach others to do exactly what I do. And it's really important to me. The whole Wild Woman side is all about women reconnecting to their intuition. A lot of us have lost that, and men too. So it doesn't really just have to be women. We all lose it, especially in our fast-paced lives. So it's really important to me for us to reconnect and get that information from within, because we all have those answers. So, and obviously the decks are just part of the tools that we use, and a passion that I have, because I love the artwork and don't have enough wall space to put all the art on my walls. So I buy them and keep them in the boxes.
That's brilliant. So before you started on this spiritual path, tell us a bit about how you came to your spiritual path, and what were the series of events that brought you to where you are now?
So the earliest thing that I can remember is I went on a ghost tour with my mother. We did the quarantine station at Manly, and I heard screams in the morgue. I was a little bit skeptical because I was only about 15. And I thought that they were playing silly buggers. I was dead set certain that the guy who was taking us on the tour had a tape recorder, because that was the thing then, back in the hidden somewhere with these screams, but apparently no one else could hear them. And I thought that kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I kind of just pretended it didn't really happen. I then eventually pieced it all together later on, as you do when you look back. And I've always been a natural healer. And every career that I've picked in that path, I've always been healing something. So I left school and I went straight into being a mechanic, which is the usual path.
That's very different though, isn't it?
It is extremely different. But I went to a school with all women, all girls, and I couldn't get away from them quick enough, because I don't know if you know what teenage girls are like, but they're not always the nicest. So I ran straight into a trade that was just full of men, because they were easier to understand for me. So, and I healed cars. So my best skill when it came to being a mechanic was all about diagnostics. And I would follow my intuition then without even realizing, and find exactly what was wrong with the car. And I could pick things by ear. So my hearing has always been I'm an auditory learner. So that's always been quite heightened. So that's one of the things. And I went from that into being an analyst, which is all about finding the problems and then fixing them, it's all just healing all the way along. So to me, all my readings are all coming from a healing space, because most of the people who come to you need that. and they need that space to grow and the opportunities that are coming. They need that healing. So I also do crystal healing and frequency healing as well. So I've used all of that throughout my path. I did do some classes in my early 20s and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought, finally, I've found something that resonates with me. So my schooling was all Catholic and it just never really resonated with me. I was always the rebel at school. You know, I remember writing an essay proving that Catholicism was a cult, and the nun in my religion class kicked me out. And I was just trying to prove a point that you could use quotes to prove either side of an argument. And she took it really personally. Kind of kicked me out.
So this is that wild woman side of you, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And the analyst side of you, when you talk about analyst, were you a business analyst as in IT?
Yes.
Right.
Not in IT. More a pricing business analyst. So I would see the trends, which was a very natural thing for me with my intuition. The patterns would just jump off the page. So it's a lot of Excel, a lot of spreadsheets, but I could just see it without even needing to, you know, like there's a lot of analysts out there that need to do 10 different spreadsheets to work out a pattern. Whereas I could just look at one and go, bam, there it is. And they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. It just happens. So
you actually bring in your spirituality even into your corporate life, and which is something so amazing. And, you know, here at the Spiritual Co-op, we're trying to get people to bridge their spirituality in everyday life. So this is exactly what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll find that in different relationships in the office, you can pick things up. Like, you know, I would meet certain people and go, oh, nah, I don't trust a word that comes out of his mouth. Or, you know, she's in it for the wrong reasons, or they're lying, or whatever it was. You could just pick it up using your spirituality and your training, and just being an empath too. That makes it really obvious.
Right. So you're clairaudient, you're an empath. What other kind of tools do you that you've developed and you help other people's develop as well?
Yep. So my clairvoyance as well. So I do see. And, you know, we had a very important topic in our class last night about the whole fact that when we see, we don't see things like we see you and me.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't discuss that. You know, it's like something that's just not talked about. And it took me a long time to realize that I was actually seeing, because I kept waiting to think that I needed to see them like you do in all the movies, walking down the street and, you know, walking through them and all those things. So, you know, I definitely do the clairvoyance and the no, I always get that one wrong.
It's all
the
those
clair
Claire
knowing
stuff. The Claire
I
knowing.
know, too
That's
many
right.
Claires, man. Too many Claires.
It's really interesting. So I was going to ask you as well, you know, how did you combine your spirituality with your work to bring you to where you are now? And, you know, what is it that actually made that switch for you, that, you know, that you realize that it's so important for you to teach this?
I would get really overwhelmed with things. So because, you know, during my classes, we didn't work a lot on protection. So during my corporate life, I would get so overwhelmed and so cranky because I could see it all. I could see it. I could feel it. I could, you know, pinpoint who was pulling your leg. And I'm just like, I'd call them out on it, and they get so cranky because they get busted. And I'm like, how do you not know? Like, what is wrong with you? How do you not see this? Like, and I realized that absolutely all of us have access to that. And it became a really important cause for me to make sure that as many people as possible reconnect to that. And that's why this has all kind of come about. I wanted to help others because that's my biggest thing. I always need to help others, being the healer. And so I decided that that was one of the ways that I wanted to do it, because I got sick and tired of people being so closed off when I
Mm,
know that they have the ability. They just use it in different ways.
yeah, yeah. And what's your favorite part about doing all of this?
Oh God, there's so many. How to choose just one? I really do love teaching. I really
Mm,
love the teaching and guiding people on their journey. So I do, with the wild woman side of things, I do coaching.
hmm.
So, and I work with one person for a long period of time to get them really reconnected to themselves and help them move forward. And it gives them that sounding board when they're learning, so that they
Right.
can then go, oh, this is what I think my intuition is telling me. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And then they get their own confidence and they build that, and they fall in love with themselves again, and they really reconnect. And it's just a beautiful process. I just love watching it.
Mm, it's really like watching a flower bloom, isn't it? When people come into their
Absolutely.
spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so talking about spirituality, what does spirituality mean to you?
Well, you know what? I don't know if I'm orthodox or not in that belief, but I believe that it's anything that you want it to be, really. I believe that it's important for you to choose your own path when it comes to being
Mm,
part of spiritual. And if something that I teach or someone else is teaching or something you've read doesn't resonate, just leave it. Take what
mm,
resonates and build your own, basically, because we evolve and everything evolves, our learning and our understanding. And just because it doesn't resonate then doesn't mean it won't later.
hmm.
So there's no reason why you have to be, you know, you don't have to denounce anything in particular. I don't believe in that. I believe everything has its place. And I
Mm,
even, you know, I have the belief that religion has its place, because we
hmm.
all need to have something. We need to
Mm,
have faith in something, and faith is so important for us as a human being. It's crucial to our happiness. So I don't have any problem with anyone who believes in God or believes in Buddha or any of those different religions, because that's the whole point of spirituality to me, is that you
mm.
believe what you feel is you, right? So it's really important that you just take whatever you need and you leave behind what you don't.
Can you elaborate a little bit, like, and give some examples for you how you've taken, different religions, different, different forms of ritual and brought that
Yeah,
into your life and created your spirituality from that?
sure. So when I was a teenager, being the rebellious one in the Catholic school, I used to read a lot of witchcraft books. And I think when I was a teenager, the only ones that I knew of were Fiona Horn. And I read her books and I'm like, oh, I really like a lot of this. But to me, it felt very rigid and it felt more rule based. And I'm like, I'm not going to jump from lots of rules being Catholic into
Mm,
another one that's just more rules and,
more rules.
do this then and do this now. And it's one of the reasons I hated tarot for decades, because of all the rules.
The rules. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't care what that card says in the book. I want it to mean what I want it to mean, what I'm getting, not what the book tells me it means. So um, for me, but I really loved a lot of the stuff in to do with witchcraft and law of attraction and all of those things. So
Mm,
I've brought all of those things together and I've made it my own. So when I do law of attraction, I work with the moon. When I'm doing manifesting, I bring the moon rituals into that space,
mm,
and I do, little candle spells when I'm doing my manifesting. Because to me they're joined. It makes it more powerful when I connect the two. So bringing
mm.
the parts that work for me together makes it more powerful because they're what I believe. That
Yeah,
makes
and that's
sense.
interesting about spirituality, isn't it? There are people who are they're so used to all the usual dogma and they have to follow everything, you know, what's the word you call it? Verbatim. But it's
Yeah.
not like that, isn't it? We really need to bring in our personal flair into that, you
Yeah.
know, and religion and spirituality and, you know, different traditions have come about that way. You know, we've learned, you know, different things and brought that in, so that it's practical into our lives as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How
So
do you? Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So one more thing about your spirituality. How do you bring that into your family life? Because obviously you're on school holidays right now.
Yeah.
Is it something that you encourage? You know, are your family accepting of it? Do they?
Yes, it took my husband a while. I still get the weird look every now and again when I talk about the aliens. He kind of gives me this look, and you know, but he's a lot more open to it than what he used to be. My kids raid my crystals, so
Oh,
I now just buy them some when I'm restocking, and they have their own little crystal box. They love it, and they bring me rocks home from school because they think that they're the same, and you know they want to bring these things because they think it's important and it's important to them. And you know, some of my older decks they've got, and we practice reading, so they try and read for me, and they
oh,
do those kind.
lovely.
Yeah, it's really cute. It's really cute. And you know, they meditate and they do all kinds of things. Like, we don't um I've never been the person who has said you have to follow this path to my
Mm,
kids. I'm like, you work it out for yourself. This is what mummy believes. She doesn't necessarily believe in this. She believes more about the universe and the universal energies. And if that feels good to you, then, you know, then this is what it looks like.
mm.
But if you want to believe in God or whatever it is, then we can look at that too. So, and there's no reason why you can't have both.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely no reason. So, you know, they love coming into my crystal room and my hippie room, as my husband calls it. And, you know, they go through my decks and they play with all my crystals and they lie on my healing bed. And, you know, they just love it. They really do love it. And they don't understand necessarily why they're drawn to certain crystals,
Mm,
but they're always drawn to what they need.
perfect. Perfect. And you know, you talk about intuition because that's one of the things that you teach people. Um, you know, in my experience, intuition is something, it's like a sense. It is a sense.
Yeah.
And we do have to practice. We do have to work on it to fine tune that, you know, like our sense of smell or our sense of taste. As a cook or as a chef, we need we are continually tasting to evolve our taste buds. And the same thing with intuition, isn't it? It's something that we need to exercise, and it sometimes it comes naturally,
Yeah.
and sometimes we have to work a little bit harder on that, and that is okay too.
Absolutely. It just means that, you know, to me, when you have to work a little bit harder on your intuition, your ego is just a bit stronger.
That's a really good one, actually.
Yeah. And I talk about two different types of egos, right? So
Hmm.
to me, there's what I call a spiritual ego, which is, you know, like that part of our brain that keeps us safe, that style of ego that's just, it's just designed to go, oh, but, you know, like second guess, second guess, second guess, because you might get hurt. And then there's the other form of ego, which we probably know a little bit better in society, where they're egotistical and they're not so nice people. But the ego that I talk about that's a little bit stronger is usually the spiritual ego. And that's just because of our past experiences. That becomes really strong if we've had some not so nice experiences in the past. So then our intuition is a little bit softer. The voice is just a bit softer. It's still there. It's just a matter of who's louder, right?
Hmm.
So I always believe that it's there. I never second guess that. And it really is a muscle that you have to build.
It
You
is.
have to use it all the
Hmm.
time. You have to practice trusting it. And you know, I teach my students to just trust what you get and don't second guess it and just go with it. even if it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, isn't it? Is that most people don't actually trust in their own intuition, even though it may be really strong, even though it might be slapping you in the face and you're walking into walls, you still go. And that's that ego you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
That ego that actually stops you from doing that. I like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about how we can work alongside that ego, because that ego, at times, it's actually quite pertinent to what we do as well. It's part of our shadow.
Yeah.
How
So,
so? Yeah.
yeah. So what I normally explain it like is our ego is like a 3-year-old child,
Mm,
right? It's always fighting for our attention. And basically what it needs to do is it just needs to be acknowledged. So
mm,
if you can acknowledge it and then go, yes, I'll be with you in a minute, it kind of just backs off because it's a 3-year-old child, right? It believes you. So if you do that, it just kind of lets it go. And it goes, okay, she's going to be with me in a minute, right? And then away you go.
mm.
Okay. So that just kind of really, to me, that's the easiest way to work with it. And when it comes to your intuition, to me, your intuition doesn't talk to you through fear. Sorry, the kids are here. Just answer the door, mate. School holidays. So the intuition actually doesn't come to us with fear. So how I explain that is like, if a lot of us really kind of think that our intuition would tell us that something bad is happening, right?
Mm.
To me, it doesn't. Like if it thinks that you're going to have a car accident, it might go, you know what, I think we should go home a different way today.
Mm.
Right? Let's go this way because that looks like a lot of traffic. Right? Because ego comes more from fear. Intuition, I feel, doesn't do that. It's not a fear-based guidance system. So your ego might pipe up and use fear to get you to do things. And that it does that a lot more often. So that's how I teach my students to tell the difference, is to
Right.
really focus on the fact that ego will always be fear driven because that's what it's designed for, to keep you safe. Whereas your intuition it may go, you know what, I don't like that person, there's something about them. But it may not go, they're a nasty piece of work who's cheating on their wife. Like, they may not give you that whole picture because you don't need it. They may just give you the heads up that they give you that vibe that there's something there that you need to just be wary of, but they're not going to tell you that, you're going to have a car accident. They're not going to sit there while you're stuck in traffic and go, you're going to have a car accident, you're going to have a car accident, you're going to have a car accident. They're going to go, you know what, there's heaps of traffic, let's go this way.
Yeah. A friend of mine always says that, his wife always tells him, when something is, and the wife is very intuitive. So if something is going to happen, she'll be like, make sure you drive slowly today. Take your time, take your time, take your time, and when she says it a few times, he goes, all right, something's going on here. I better listen to that.
And that's probably all the information she got.
Yes.
Because it's not designed to come from that space, because intuition comes from our higher self, and our higher self doesn't live in fear. So,
and it's all about that awareness, isn't it? Just being aware of the energies around you or what's happening around you.
Yes, absolutely. It's really important to notice the different energy shifts, and the more you work on that, the more you'll notice.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your business and how it's evolved, or how it's evolving as we speak.
I know. Like when I first started, all I did was readings because that's all I had the guts for. I was very nervous. And then I progressed to also trust my healing abilities. So I progressed to do readings and healings. And then over the years, it just became more and more, the people that I read for had no one to help them. They just didn't have anyone that they trusted that they could turn to learn about themselves. And, I went and did my NLP training for coaching, and that just blew my mind. When I learned how people's minds work, it just absolutely blew my mind. And then I incorporated that into the business. And then every course that I did after that just get incorporated and incorporated. So everything to me, it truly is just evolution. So that's why now I'm still doing readings, I'm still doing healings. My healings have evolved. So it's not just crystal healing. I now use a quantum healing device as well, to amplify the healings that I do, as well as the energy that I channel through my guides. And then the coaching and the teaching was extremely important to me, because that's where I really saw the gap. And where I could make a really big impact. And, I've been saying for years that I've always wanted to raise the consciousness of the planet. That was a really big thing for me. So this is my way of contributing to that.
I love how the conversation flows, because that was my next question. What is your vision and mission? I've got a whole list of questions, but you seem to have answered all of them. You must be psychic.
Must be.
Must be. So tell us a little bit about your vision and mission, and what is it that you really want to put out to the world?
So my vision and mission, as I just said, is obviously raising the consciousness of the planet. And my current way of doing that is helping people open up to their own intuition, because I feel that once people connect to that, that will automatically raise the consciousness, because that's the gateway, if that makes sense. So there's people that aren't connected or don't realize they're connected and aren't really listening. And then there's others that are, and they're the ones that are helping everyone else connect and see things for what they truly are. And that's the important part to me. Everything that happened with Corona, the biggest download I got was, now's the time. They need you more than ever, because they're getting driven by their fear and their ego because of all the information that's around us. And it was so important that they come out of this the other side connected to themselves, so that they knew what news to worry about, and they knew what, they could tap into what they actually really needed to know. And these are the times that they truly, really need that to step up. They need us all to step up so that we can get into that space where we're truly connected to ourselves, and stop relying on all the information and all the, there's so many bits of information out there at the moment. You have no idea which one to, believe. And it's just up to you to find the peace within yourself.
Yeah. And that's what I've been telling a lot of people. This Corona is actually quite a gift, because it's allowing people who are intuitive to really go deeper, that deeper connection within themselves, and those people that are not so aligned to who they are, it's a time to really understand the shadow side of whom you are, because this period has brought all of that up. It's made us stir crazy. It's made us look inwards. And the ones who are really starting to understand, and are comfortable in their space, are starting to understand what makes them tick.
Yeah. And it's really bringing to light the ones that are out of alignment.
Yes. And it's also, well, I guess it's bringing it out, but it's also allowing them to see that things can spiral spiral out of control when you don't understand who you are.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm really hoping to bring with the spiritual co-op, is that we bring that spirituality into our everyday lives, so that it allows us to see a bigger picture and realize that we have much more control of what is going on within our energy system, and allow us to take not take control of this. Control's the wrong word.
Go
I
with the
think it's
flow.
go with the flow. Yeah, it's really allowing us to flow in that stream of life.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because to be in alignment, you are in flow.
that's exactly
And
right.
yeah, so that's really important. And following your intuition will get you there.
Mm, yeah,
So that's why it was super important to me at the moment to really get that out.
yeah. So lastly, what about your life and your vocation do you love the most? I mean, what is it that excites you the most doing
Oh,
what you do now?
um, I do love watching people grow and helping people. That's
Mm,
really, really my biggest thing. It's even in, it's the healer that keeps coming out, right? I have to help people. If I don't help people, I go bananas, right? And I do, like, even now, like, I've done a lot of work on my boundaries and done all those things, but even now I still have to keep that in check because I'm the kind of person that will give to my own detriment.
mm,
So, and that's just the healer that comes out. So I am conscious of that, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Nothing lights me up more than my business. It's just like, obviously my kids and my family light me up, but when it comes, gotta add them in, right? But it makes me truly happy. Like, I'm just so happy when I'm doing those things, and it's like I'm me. I'm
yeah,
the person who I'm supposed to be when I'm doing that stuff. When I'm doing anything in corporate world, like I feel like I'm playing a part,
mm,
like I'm in some part. I know that my guides step in when I'm in there. They give me all these great marketing and sales ideas, and I can pick things up. And my boss just kind of looks at me strange. He's like, "I don't know how you know that," and I'm like, I don't need to tell everyone my secrets. So, um, but it really does light me up. The more I use it, the more I love it. And one of the things that really kind of makes me giggle is, so my husband, for example, will talk to me, and he'll probably kill me for this, but he'll talk to me about his gut instinct. And I'm like, that's your intuition, right? No, it's my gut. Okay, sure. Sure, you call it whatever you like, but it's the same thing.
it
And
is.
it really is. And it's just a different language for it. So I've
Mm,
become really aware of the different language that people use for that over the years. And it's fascinating to see that evolution
yeah.
as we grow as a human race.
Yeah. Well, even in the medical industry, isn't it? Our gut governs our fight and flight,
Yeah.
So that's why people always use that term, I've got to listen to my gut because that's where that's where your serotonin, your melatonin, your melatonin, all the happy endorphins come out.
Yeah.
And and yeah, and it also, where the happy endorphins come, it can go the other way to
Yes.
warn you of impending doom.
Yes.
So and that's what I love about the human body and the human mind. It's so fascinating how by being aligned, because we talk about this, we've just talked about it, it's all about being aligned to whom we are and what we're about, that
Yeah.
brings about our spirituality.
Yeah. And funny thing about alignment is that when you're out of alignment, it'll actually manifest in the physical. So for me, for example, I went through depression a few times. And what I've learned every time I went through depression was I was actually out of alignment.
Mm,
And once I worked that out and could see it, then I knew what I had to do, and I was out like that.
mm,
So it wasn't, and I know that there's a lot of other reasons that cause depression, and I'm not a doctor and all those things, right? But for me, that's what it was. Once I recognized that I was out of alignment and I started taking steps to get back into alignment to who I truly was, the depression
mm,
just disappeared.
yeah. And it's the whole thing of understanding yourself. And I always talk about understanding your patterns. And when you can see the patterns actively happening, because they will happen because they are patterns.
Yep.
And it's also part of our lesson that we need to master. You know, this is the whole self-mastery thing as well.
Yeah.
You know, the minute we get to understand what those patterns are, we also know how to conquer our fears.
Yeah.
And work from
It's
a place. True. Yeah, and work from a place that is beautiful and clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you who want to know a little bit more about Kerrie, you can find Kerrie on the Spiritual Co-op website, on our Spiritual Hub, as that is our directory. You can also find her on, what's your website?
KerrieMcGilvray.com.
Yeah. So we'll put that on the link below so that everyone can see that. And if you're interested in having a reading or a healing or doing some of your courses or learning to develop your intuition, you can go on to both the websites and connect with Kerrie and connect with all of us, you know, so that we can help you on your spiritual journey, and hopefully find some alignment in your life.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Kerrie, for being a part of the Spiritual Co-op and sharing your wisdom, your wild woman wisdom, and and thank you for taking this time out during the school holidays. You know, I know you've got a trip planned with the children, but you know, thank you so much for taking this time to share your story and, you know, tell people who you are.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I had an absolute blast. We could have talked for hours.
I know we can. We already know that.
I know.
I've been like,
no one else does though.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much for being here. From my heart to yours, take care of the people around you and take care of yourself.
Will
See
do.
you soon.
You too. Bye.
Bye.